Hey everybody, welcome to my live today. I am doing it in a little bit of a different location. So today I'm going to be talking about um, SCD diet, and the big question is, how long do you do it? Can you add new foods? And the big, do you have to do it forever? So I wish there was a more definitive answer to this, but the real answer is it's individual. My personal thoughts is not a recommendation, but it is my personal thoughts on SCD, and that is that it is a healing diet. So you have to modify it as you go anyway. So my thought on adding new food is that it's something that you can consider once you have achieved remission and the healing point that you want to get to. So I, um, when I last video, I talked about how I wanted to do it for 30 days and see what happened. In that case, I was just testing it out. And so I got results. So I decided to keep going. And at that point, I decided a year. After the year, I just wanted to keep going because I felt so good. So it was many years. Sorry, I'm a little shaky on the camera here today. It was many years before I really thought about adding new foods. The thing about breaking the vicious cycle is it does indicate that you can try new foods maybe after a couple of years of healing, but it doesn't really give any guidance as to what. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused or get scared to even do it. So when I first started, I tried to find some healthy options like ancient grains. I think I tried millet and oats and stuff like that. But I didn't really feel like I knew what I was doing. A few years after that, I just decided to start eating whatever I wanted. That was, some people do have success with that. It's not something I recommend as far as like processed foods and high sugar and stuff like that, but it is all individual. Um, and I want people to have satisfaction in their life. So it's not like you can never, ever, ever have those things again. Some people can't, some people can. But my general recommendation is that we still follow the no processed and no sugars, no gluten, if we can. But that's just for me personally. My biggest thing was when I started eating whatever I wanted, it just got out of control because I was like, I didn't get sick from it. This was probably about like 10 years into the diet. So I didn't get sick. And so I just kept adding on. And that was a very difficult thing because I did end up getting a flare, but it took a while. It took a long time. So that's one thing to know. A lot of people don't realize that you don't always get an immediate reaction. It can be a buildup. That doesn't mean to not ever try anything. Some people don't want to, and that is totally fine. I think taking a careful approach for me is what has worked. So, what I did, so around the time that I did kind of go out of control, I had a lot of stress going on in my life. So, my mom had passed away, and I changed jobs, and we're buying a house, and my dog passed away a little bit after that. And so, it's just a rough time. So, there was a stress factor in there too. And so I was eating a lot for comfort, but not really choosing what that should be. My thought on that is mm, it wasn't my best decision. I don't totally regret it either. I have to admit, I have to be honest. I got to have a lot of things that I hadn't had in a long time, and my flare up was very mild. So I went back to SCD. I took a short course of steroid and like 4 weeks. And then I was fine after that. So a few years after that, I started feeling like, well, what can I do that's responsible? I don't want to miss out. Well, that's one of my big things. It's not just like, oh, I just want to eat pizza and ice cream and candy and stuff like that. My biggest thing was that I wanted to eat. I didn't want to miss out on some healthy foods. And so that became my catalyst for choosing in the future, not just out of like I want it, but what might be a healthy option for me. So the handful of foods that I eat now are plantain, sweet potato, unsweetened cocoa, um, and quinoa. And those are my main ones that are kind of additions. I eat a few other things here and there, but nothing. But those are my main additions, where it's kind of like a normal part of my diet. Anything else is special, and not regular, kind of inconsequential for me. And you'll see other people who follow Crohn, who have Crohn's and followed a special diet for a while, also had similar experience in that they were able to add on or eat things a little bit outside the diet, as needed for travel or fun or pleasure. And so that is what I tell people. That's the biggest question I get. How long do you do this for? Um, if you get results within 30 days, I definitely recommend that you're going to keep going for a year or two. Um, and then you might add on some new foods. When you add on new food, you pick one thing and you add on. You have a little bit of it, and then you wait 3 days, and then you have it. You have the same thing again, and so you want to do that over the course of a couple of weeks. Make sure that's working for you. Like I said, even though there can be an immediate reaction. If that's why I don't want to go outside. For me, I cannot eat like sugary things and gluten and stuff like that because I don't really have an immediate reaction to it. Those are the kind of things for me that build up over time. Whereas other things, I might get immediate reaction to if it's like something just way out there. So for me, I like to add on. I just eat like when I eat those things now. I typically only have one, maybe two non-SCD foods in a day or in a recipe, and that's kind of how I held to it. And then the slow intro was a way for me to just check those foods out and have a much more controlled addition to my diet after having gone off the rails a few years before. Um, the thing about diet, I wish we could like change the name of STD to not be diet, especially these days where we're kind of like diet is something that's considered temporary, and there's actually kind of like currently, as if I'm recording this, there's kind of a negative vibe to the word diet. There's an anti-diet movement. So I think that, SCD, eating for your health is eating for your health. It's not a diet. A diet to me is temporary. Diet to me is restriction. And we like to think of it as a health coach, I like to think of it as restoration. It's not restriction. Even though you're not eating all the foods, what we're not restricting, what we don't want to restrict as we're getting healthy is calories. We're not trying to lose weight. We're trying to get our health back. So in that sense, we're trying to eat the foods that are best for us. So it's not restricting. It's just eliminating a few things that don't work for us. And maybe you get some of those things back, and maybe, we all have different severity of illness. Like for me, I think I've been able to be successful and add things back because I don't really have any food intolerances. So that might be something, if you're thinking about it, like what you might want to look into. Do you have a food intolerance? Could be an SCD food, could be a non one. Maybe I don't have lactose intolerance. And even though I still make everything lactose free, I don't, I can easily eat all the cheese that's allowed on SCD and yogurt. My homemade yogurt is lactose free, but I don't have any issues with it. I don't have a casein allergy. And so there's just something to think about. Do you have a sensitivity to legumes? Do you have a sensitivity to any kind of grain if you're thinking about adding that back in? That's why I only do quinoa. That's like my one thing because it's not truly a grain. It's actually a seed. It's just grain-like and more starchy than a regular seed. That's my one grain-like thing I eat. I never added in rice or oats or anything like that. And I'm totally satisfied. But that's something to think about. I think for me, the more carefully you can consider what you're going to add in, the better off you will be in doing it. And that is just my personal advice. It's not like this is what you should do. I like to say in my experience and not tell people what they should do. So, because there is an important component to eating and to life, and that is enjoyment. And that is something I strive to help people get to, even if you are not eating all the foods. That's something I have, like I said, in one of my earlier videos, I said how like happy I am with what I eat, and that is true. I've gotten myself to a point where I've added on just the right amount of non-SCD foods that are satisfying and healthy. So, like I said, grains are something I was like really considering. I'm like, am I missing out on the health benefit of grains and fiber? And is grain fiber the same as vegetable fiber? And it pretty much, I mean, as long as you're getting fiber, and that is something to work towards too as you're healing. Low fiber is better when you have illness. But that's one thing I like to help people think about is that we have our illness stage, and as we heal, our gut is going to get healthier. It's not going to be as inflamed. It's going to be able to absorb more foods. And so, why do we want to keep eating the exact same as when we were sick? So, I think that's something to consider, even if it's just adding on more SCD foods or looking at a paleo or Mediterranean diet, or something that works for you. That's something to think about. Do we want to be so restrictive forever? Are we missing out on nutrients? Are we missing out on satisfaction? That's another thing with the word diet. So, diet for a lot of people means restriction. Restriction is a negative mental state when it comes to eating. And it makes it hard for people to stick to it because you're thinking of it as a diet, and everybody interprets diet as something that you can go outside of. You've probably experienced this if you're doing SCD. Well, you don't have to do it all the time. So that's why I like to just think of it as the way I eat. I'm a person who doesn't eat this. I don't eat sugar. I'm a person who doesn't eat sugar. Somebody told me that once when they had found they had a gluten sensitivity, and they're like, I am a person who doesn't eat bread, and that's how they think of it. I'm like, not a person who can't, who has a problem. It's just like, I'm a person who doesn't eat bread. And that's kind of how I think of myself too. So those are just some thoughts I have on this. So the question, do we have to do it forever? I think the short answer is no, but for some people, they don't achieve the amount of healing that allows them to go too far outside that. But some people do. So that's why I don't like to listen. I mean, I like to hear what other people have to say, but I don't want to. Some people say you can never do it. Your illness is just inactive and these foods will reawaken it. I don't know. There's not a lot of evidence to suggest that. But the other thing is pay attention to the cues of your body. You kind of can know if you're getting some inflammation, if things aren't feeling right. Just think about what you've been eating or what else is going on in your life. Food is not the only factor when it comes to IBD. Stress is a big factor. Like I said, when I was eating like everything I wanted, I also had some extreme stress going on in my life. So maybe those things put together caused, the flare. Maybe it wasn't just what I was eating, although I don't think that helped. The other things are environmental factors. So if you are in a place where there is, poor quality of water, poor quality of air, that could affect you. If you are in a bad situation in your life right now, that's a stress factor. You've lost your job. Money is a factor, and money is a very big factor when we're trying to eat this way because it can be very expensive. So that can cause a lot of stress and make it very difficult to do it. And that's what I also like to help people do is figure that out. How do you make this affordable? And what are the best choices you can make if if you're really struggling to afford everything? The other thing the other thing that can be a contributing factor, if you're in an abusive situation, that's going to be a big factor indicator of what you can do as far as your health, you know. So I want to think about all of these things and not just, well, do I do this forever the exact same way, because our life changes. And that is one thing I like to stress with people, is that it is okay. You know, if it's not work, if your life has taken a huge turn and you're not able to do the same things, well, let's figure out what you can do. And that's how I kind of think about myself. You know, my life has changed many times since I started this diet. And, you know, and not thinking about it led me to a bad place, but thinking about it has led me to a really good place, both mentally and physically. And being able to maintain what I've been able to maintain has been thinking about the big picture and not just what I have to do and listening to what other people say that I have to do. I think that the biggest thing for me is that I have to figure it out for myself and what works, and use everything else as a guide. And I like to be a guide too, but what works for me may not work for you, but I like to help figure it out. So if you do have any questions, you can post them here, or please feel free to contact me personally on one of my social media channels, or you can send me an email at sherry@scdforlife.com. I love talking about this, and I love talking with other people and hearing their experiences. So tell me in the comments, have you been able to add anything in if you're following SCD, or are you thinking about it, or were you not able to? I love hearing all points of view and what you guys do for yourselves. Thanks so much. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next week. And if you have any topics that you'd like to cover, any questions, please let me know. So I did get a question right now. What supplements do we take? I don't take any. I've never been a big supplement person. I've had to take vitamin B12 in the past. I actually had to give a shot after my surgery, but actually somehow my body started absorbing it again many years later. So I do not take any supplements at this time. I try to get everything from the food I eat. I'm lucky to have rebuilt my gut so that it can absorb nutrients pretty well, and I get my blood tested, and everything's pretty normal. Have I experienced any issues? Another question. Have I experienced any issues from being on the diet for an extended period of time? I don't think I have. That's a good question, because that is why I try to encourage people to broaden their diet as much as they can, even if it's just within SCD itself. Because a more diverse diet is a more diverse microbiome, and that is what we want. So I think that over time, I have my cholesterol tested, I have my blood work done. It's normal. The cholesterol sometimes was a little bit high, but on the good side, it was the good cholesterol that was high. And I think that's a pretty normal thing. Also, I'm getting older, so that's another factor. Like I said, there's a lot of factors that go into our health. I think that some people can experience, unfortunately, disordered eating is prevalent in people with IBD, because you're really, really, really trying to control everything, and sometimes we can't. And so you start restricting, and getting into a bad mental state. And that's something I really like to help not happen for people, because I think I was in that state too, where I, so I wasn't in a good mental state during the time where I ate everything, and then I tried to restrict everything, and I had to get to a new place. Did my Crohn's symptoms ever completely clear up? And if so, how long on SCD? So yes, I have. I've been in remission for a very long time. Even before I had the little flare up, I was in remission before that. I don't take any medication. And if you watch my previous videos, you'll know that I had a very severe case of Crohn's that landed me in the hospital with an emergency surgery. So yes, I did have surgery. That did take care of that inflammation, but I've been able to keep it from coming back, except for the one minor flare, in over 20 years. So I Yeah, I have been able to maintain remission with no symptoms for this long. So it's been like 12 years since I had the flare up, even. And that is, I like to, my doctor says it's luck, and maybe there's a little bit of that. I like to hopefully attribute it to, what I eat and trying to be healthy. Um, somebody's asking, same person asking, am I familiar with the MAP vaccine? No, I did not know they had a MAP vaccine. That is very exciting if it works. I see it's in trial. I'll have to look more into that. But thank you for letting me know. I don't have MAP. They tested me for MAP when I had the surgery, and I had not done anything to cure my Crohn, or not cure. There's no cure. Had not done anything to help my Crohn's besides medication before surgery. So there no antibiotics or anything like that at the time. So they tested me for MAP, and I didn't have MAP. So my Crohn's is very unknown where it came from. Nobody else in my family has it that I know of. So I don't know where it is, but for people who have MAP and if there is a vaccine, that is very exciting news. So I will look more into that. So thank you so much, everybody. And be sure to ask questions in the comments or personally. And if you have any more questions, just put them below. I will get to them very soon. So thank you so much. And I will see you next week.